the Kings managed to take down the defending champion Denver Nuggets 123-117 at home. They improved to 11-7, and I just thought this was an extremely solid win for the Kings from start to finish. Nothing crazy, no crazy runs, no incredible shot making or anything like that. It was just they stuck to the game plan and were able to come away with the win. The Denver Nuggets were without Jamal Murray in this one, but Aaron Gordon did play. I thought Aaron Gordon playing would have a big impact, but the Kings were able to limit him for the most part. The Nuggets were on the second night of a back-to-back, and so maybe this season the Kings will just beat every team that's on the second night of a back-to-back, but also lose every game when they're on the second night of a back-to-back. We did have Keegan Murray back in this game. He had a pretty quiet game other than knocking down 3 shots to start the third quarter, but he'll get back into his flow offensively. He played 23 minutes in this one, but I feel like the reason the Kings really won this game was their defensive game plan. The Kings were able to limit the Nuggets, especially from behind the three-point line. The Nuggets didn't make a three-pointer until almost a full 3 quarters into this game. And Malik said it after the game. He was talking about how the plan was to limit the above the break 3-pointers and live with the corner threes. You could definitely tell that that was the case. And overall, the Kings' game plan was to limit limit everyone other than Jokic as much as possible and force Jokic to be a scorer. I talked about that being a key to this game because it's exactly what the Rockets did when they dominated against the Nuggets. I think it's what every team kind of has to do because you can't stop Jokic. I thought Sabonis did a pretty solid job, like a valiant effort to defend him, and he's just able to make crazy shots and make crazy passes. But the Kings did a really solid job of limiting cutters, not allowing easy baskets around the rim, and then forcing other guys to have to take tough 3-pointers. And they did a really good job of running 3-point shooters off the line above the break, especially Michael Porter Jr. I thought Keegan, when he was out there, did a really good job of that. I think the Kings did a really good job for like 3.5 quarters. It kind of fell apart there in the fourth quarter, the end of the fourth quarter, defensively, but they were able to just keep scoring, so it didn't really matter. Even though it was a pretty close game at the end, it still felt like one of the less stressful games that we've had this season. And I was pretty confident in the Kings pulling it out through most of this game. I think they came out and we're struggling a little bit. Sabonis was really struggling finishing inside, and so was everyone else. It was kind of a theme for this game. The Kings missed a lot of bunnies inside. Barnes missed a key one late. I think Sabonis did as well. Like there was just a lot of misses around the rim from the Kings. And it wasn't the best first quarter. It definitely was not the worst. Kevin Huerter, I thought, was playing really well. I mean, the Kings were playing really solid team defense. Huerter was playing great team defense. His rebounding throughout this entire game was great. Monk, of course, came out just firing. I think it's just a rule that his first shot has to be the first time he catches the ball behind the 3-point line. He just has to chuck it up. But with this Nuggets team, the key is always going to be the non-Jokic minutes. And in the first quarter, the Kings didn't do a great job of winning the non-Jokic minutes. Of course, that's a very small portion of the non-Jokic minutes at the end of the first quarter, but you have to take advantage of like all the non-Jokic minutes you can. JaVale McGee kind of came out. He goaltended one. He was going for blocks he had no chance at. The offense got a little bit sloppy and they were missing shots. But then they came out in the second quarter with Jokic still on the bench, and they were much, much better. JaVale McGee is just like, he is so chaotic. Like, I love him. I hate him. I don't know, man. He's just a crazy player. He got 3 highlight blocks. Like I said, he had a goaltend. I thought one of those blocks might have been a goaltend. He definitely goes for too many blocks, kind of a Hassan Whiteside like player where you're going for the block instead of just playing solid defense and then getting the rebound. But when he does get the block, it's great. And then he got it going offensively. Him and Malik Monk, of course, were playing well together, and the Kings were running in transition. And you had JaVale McGee going for, hook shots and going right at Jokic. I was just like, it's great when it works. It's like amazing to watch, but then, sometimes it doesn't work. I was just impressed that he started the game 4 for 4 from the field and then didn't take a shot after that. That was like the most impressive part of his game to me, was that he didn't just try to, take a three or take some crazy hook shot because he was feeling it, He's just a crazy up and down player. And this game was very much the up part. It was funny watching him and DeAndre Jordan kind of go back and forth. McGee definitely won the battle of the old athletic centers, but the entire bench unit at the start of the second quarter was playing really well. Trey Lyles was contributing. Sasha came out, hit a three, drew a foul on the three, only went 1 for 3 at the line on those, but they went on a run with Jokic on the bench, and they were using their defense to spark the offense, because without Jokic, and especially without Jokic while Jamal Murray is out injured, the Nuggets offense isn't going to be great. They have a lot of young guys coming off that bench. Even, the vets they have are not guys that are going to create on offense. That's Justin Holiday and DeAndre Jordan off the bench because Reggie Jackson has to go into the starting lineup. And even the other, kind of stars of the Nuggets, and MPJ and Aaron Gordon, they're not going to be guys that are facilitating the offense. Jokic came back in, and the game got super chaotic. Kings were scoring on one end, but allowing the Nuggets to score really easily. But it was definitely the pace of play that the Kings wanted. With Denver coming in on the second night of a back-to-back, the Kings wanted to push the pace, and it got super frenetic, chaotic, a little too chaotic. So, Sabonis came back in. And then even in the Jokic minutes, the Kings were able to extend their lead. I thought Sabonis did a really good job of trying to stay in front of Jokic, contest his jumpers, but force him to take those jumpers. Everyone else did a really good job of staying connected to their man and communicating switches really well to not allow open shots or open cuts. The Kings were doubling when Jokic would put the ball on the floor to try to go into the post against Domas. And just all around a great defensive game plan, and really well executed by the Kings. Fox didn't need to do much scoring in the first half. He was doing a lot of facilitating, though. He ended up setting a career high in assists in this game with 16. Domas also wasn't doing the scoring in the first half, but it was other guys. It was Malik Monk, JaVale McGee, like I talked about. Kevin Huerter started off playing really well. Barnes was hitting his shots. Keegan Murray was definitely a bit hesitant in his first game back, but defensively he was good. Also, Barnes was defensively good on Aaron Gordon. But what was interesting is in the third quarter, I think the Nuggets did a good job of getting the switches that they want. And a lot of times it was Harrison Barnes getting switched onto Michael Porter Jr. and Keegan Murray getting switched onto Aaron Gordon. And Keegan can play really well against MPJ because Keegan can navigate screens, use his length to contest the shots, and Harrison Barnes can use his strength against Aaron Gordon. But when you switch those, Keegan kind of was getting bullied a bit by Aaron Gordon, and Harrison Barnes' screen navigation is absolutely horrendous. So MPJ kind of got open shots there. So that was just interesting to see how very clearly our two wing defenders there have very specific skill sets that were suited to guard two of the players on the other team, but when they got switched, it didn't go well. But even when Aaron Gordon, when he came out in the second half and was going right at Keegan, Keegan was giving it right back to him. He hit 1 3 on, I think it was a catch and shoot, and then another 3 where he kind of got Aaron Gordon stumbling and then hit a step back 3. Also got a 2, so a quick 8 points for him. The Nuggets were really struggling from the 3-point line, but the Kings doing a great job of guarding that. One thing I will say, though, about the Kings offense, like, they wanted to play with pace. They wanted to run in transition. But all season long, their transition offense has not been great. And I mean, I think it was a little better in this game than we've seen in the past, but there were still moments where they were just a little sloppy in transition and they weren't pushing the ball to the rim like maybe they should. And they just don't score as much in transition as I feel like they should. But I thought Sabonis came out in the second half and was much more in control. I thought in the first half, he was loose with the ball, obviously missing easy shots around the rim, easy in terms of shots that I would just expect him to make. But he just felt much more in control in the second half. But the Nuggets were grinding back into this game. Late in the third quarter, when Fox was on the bench, Nuggets finally got a 3 to go, and they were just grinding back into it. Through their defense, the Kings were finally missing shots, and Jokic was just making some incredible plays and some incredible shots. They cut it to 5, and then Fox was back in the game at that point at the end of the third quarter, and he drove into the lane and found Monk for a 3, then got a steal on Christian Brown and got an easy layup to get it back up to 10. Then the Kings played really solid defense on Jokic on the last possession of the quarter, and they were able to maintain that double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter. And I thought that was huge because you knew at the start of the fourth quarter the Nuggets were going to have to take Jokic out, and the Kings had an opportunity to put the game away because Jokic played the entire third quarter, and so the Kings could go on a big run against the Nuggets' second unit and pretty much put the game to bed. Now, that did not happen. They were losing the non-Jokic minutes. Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan bringing them back, especially Reggie Jackson. But then Sabonis got put back in the game, and he immediately got on the offensive glass. The Kings didn't get a ton of offensive rebounds, especially when Jokic was on the court. Sabonis was battling in there, and he was, tipping the ball up. But Jokic is just so good. He just tips the ball up and keeps tipping it up to himself until he can finally come down and catch it. And it's so tough to get a rebound against a guy that's that huge and strong. But against DeAndre Jordan, it was much easier for Sabonis. And then Fox. Fox has just turned into such a great two-way player. Whenever he was on Reggie Jackson, Reggie Jackson was trying to bring the Nuggets back into it. And he ended the game with 20 points, 8 assists. But whenever Fox was on him, he was just getting right up into him and doing a great job defensively. And he also had that play where he stole the ball as the Nuggets tried to outlet it and just walked into a 3, splashed the 3. And I think that shows that one play is kind of how De'Aaron Fox has elevated into a true superstar, where he's doing it on the defensive end and he can hit the 3 ball consistently. He went 3 for 6 in this game. And then Sabonis, when Fox went out, Sabonis finally started to dominate offensively in this game. Him and Malik together in that 2-man game were doing a really good job, and Sabonis was finishing around the rim. He finally found his touch around the rim, and that was huge for us to be able to win this game at the end. Reggie Jackson really was trying to bring the Nuggets back into it. They were running that pick and roll with Jokic and Reggie Jackson, and the Kings just could not stop it. And then Jokic got some calls on one end. Fox didn't get calls on the other end. Fox didn't have a free throw until they started intentionally fouling, which was crazy with the pretty soft stuff that they gave Jokic late in this game. For the most part in this game, they were letting them play, which I liked. But then in the fourth quarter, they started calling those touch fouls for Jokic, but Fox was not getting the same love, which I did not love. But it didn't matter because Fox was still able to just fight through the contact and score. He was splitting doubles. They kept trying to take the ball out of his hands, and he would just split the double, take the contact, and put in what should have been an and one. And he was getting so much attention that they left Malik Monk wide open, who was having a great game scoring-wise. He's been shooting the lights out as of late, and he just knocked down an open three, and that was kind of the one that put it away. And then Herter was huge on the defensive glass late, and Sabonis was huge on the offensive glass. So despite the Kings missing some easy ones, they were able to pull out the win. Herter took that three with the Kings up 5, and there was like an 8-second difference between shot clock, game clock. And I was like, what are you doing? But he splashed it, so no need to talk about that anymore, even though it was a stupid decision. But it doesn't matter because he made it. But one thing that I did love that Kevin Herter did late in this game was he had that one play where he just took a dribble or two in and then just took a nice floater and made it. And it was a really simple play, but the reason I loved it was because Herter got involved early in this one and he was knocking down his shots. The Kings do that a lot. They want to involve Herter early. But then, as what happens a lot of the times is he doesn't get the same amount of touches as the game goes on, and so he wasn't shooting as much. But then still in the fourth quarter, in a key moment, he was able to put the ball on the floor and score just a huge bucket. So I just love that he can kind of take a backseat for a lot of the game and not take a lot of shots, but then come up huge when it matters. The Kings' rotation in this one was interesting. Davion was out because of illness, so Keon Ellis got the backup point guard minutes. But the bench unit was Keon, Monk, Lyles, Vezenkov, McGee. Keon only played 8 minutes. We definitely saw a lot of Monk as the backup point guard. And then late we were getting the Fox, Monk, Herter all together minutes. Keegan didn't play in this game late. And we definitely saw a little bit of Trey Lyles in for Harrison Barnes at the end, but they were kind of splitting time in clutch time. But no Chris Duarte, no Kessler Edwards either. So it was very much an offensive-oriented lineup with Vezenkov out there playing the 3. And there wasn't really anybody that the Kings needed to guard when the bench was out there and, that they had to key in on. And so that kind of allowed them to go more offensive focused. But I do wonder if this is the lineup that we're going to keep going with, because Duarte just has been inconsistent offensively. I love his physicality defensively, but he just can't stop fouling. And Sasha has shown to be a solid enough defender, and he's contributing offensively, and that bench unit played really well. It may be, just matchup dependent, but we'll see. Good to have Keegan back, though. But Fox in this one, just a great game. He went 10 for 22 from the field. Not the best, not the worst, obviously. But it's the 16 assists, 3 steals with those 26 points. He had the highest plus minus in this game. And, plus minus definitely not always reflective of how a player actually plays. But I think in this one it definitely was, because the Kings, at times were solid without him, but then at times definitely struggled to score. And he just got his 26 points in such a calm way, just hitting his open threes, just kind of walking into the lane and going glass, getting 2 points here and there, not getting any free throws, just kind of moseying along, just getting into the lane, making the right passes. Guys were knocking down shots. It was such a quiet 26 and 16 for him. He's playing at such a consistent level that I don't think we've really seen in seasons past. Of course, we've seen this level of play from him, but it's the consistency so far this season that's been really impressive. Sabonis had a tough matchup in this one. Definitely started poorly. He's been having a tough go of it offensively, but he, in the second half, had a big bounce back. He has that nice turnaround jump shot that you can tell he's been working on, and he's making an extremely high percentage of those this season. I can only remember him really missing one. So he's able to go to that, especially late in shot clocks. He was really knocking down the jumper in this one. and then got it going with Malik Monk in that two-man game to be able to get going inside. He had the 15 rebounds. Even though Jokic, you can look at his stat line and be like 36, 14 assists, 13 rebounds, right? That's incredible, did it efficiently. But you're not going to stop Jokic. I thought Sabonis did a pretty solid job of trying to defend him. Got called on a couple of those fouls where you're just like, that's just tough, And then, of course, you have Jokic just making some crazy shots, some crazy passes where you're like, yeah, nothing more you can do. And so he was able to for the most part, keep Jokic off the offensive glass. And for the Kings as a whole, they did a pretty good job on the defensive glass. But then we have to talk about Malik Monk. Malik Monk went 9 for 14 in this game, 4 for 7 from 3, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 26 points, 4 assists, 2 steals. Had a few definitely rough turnovers, but other than that was just absolutely incredible. They showed a stat on the broadcast where he was like 10th in clutch points this season, and we saw that, in the playoffs versus the Warriors. And I thought coming into this season that he could be better than he was last regular season because he's more settled into his role and, he kind of learned where he could impact the game. You could definitely see as last season went on, he had a slow start and he just built into it. But I also picked him as the most likely to disappoint because he raised everyone's expectations with that massive playoff series. And I'm like, I think he'll be better than he was in the regular season, but maybe not that playoff level. But he really has been. He is the third most important player on this team. Maybe long term it's Keegan Murray. Maybe not, but I would hope so. But Malik Monk truly is just so important because he's really the only other guy other than Fox that's just going to take the ball himself and get into the paint and make things happen. He can be chaotic at times, but I think he's been less chaotic in a bad way this season than he was last season. And his shot making is incredible. And of course, we have to remember he's only 25 years old. He's still, he's growing from last season to this season. And rightfully so, people are talking, whenever they talk about Malik Monk, they're talking about him being a free agent this offseason. And I don't love talking about it because I just like, living in the now and talking about what's going on this season. But it's definitely important that we keep him. And I think we will be able to. But he really is just such an impactful player for this team, especially, having him and Fox together in the clutch is so fun because they're just two guys that are not afraid of the moment. And so it's really fun to have two of those guys on one team. I mean, it's fun to have one of those guys, in Fox being, clutch player of the year last season, but then to have another guy who is also incredible in the clutch, that is really fun. The Kings' next game is on Monday, and it is the in-season tournament quarterfinals versus the New Orleans Pelicans in Sacramento. Obviously, earlier in this season, the Kings just recently dropped both games to the Pelicans, both in New Orleans. Zion just dominated us in both games. That's really what happened. Nobody could guard Zion. It's nice to have Keegan Murray back now to be able to help with that. But the Kings just have to do a better job of executing the game plan to focus in on stopping Zion. We saw the Kings be able to execute the game plan of stopping everyone else other than Jokic. So now we kind of need to do the opposite, I think, and really just build that wall. Like people talk about building the wall against Giannis. You need to do the same thing against Zion, because nobody can guard him one-on-one. But the Pelicans have been getting healthier. They got Trey Murphy back. They got CJ McCollum back. They still don't have Larry Nance. He re-aggravated his rib injury, I believe it is, so they won't have him. Part of me is like, I like that CJ McCollum's back because it means you're taking the ball out of Zion's hands, and he was just absolutely dominating us on every possession. But of course, he's a big shot maker for them. They just got a lot of guys that can score. And then they got other guys that can catch and shoot, right? You got CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion that can score, even Valanciunas who can score, and then guys like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins and Jose Alvarado who are going to defend on one end and then hit threes on the other. But I'm not too worried about the Kings losing 2 games to them because, one, they were in New Orleans, but two, I just think that wasn't how I believe the Kings can play. I just think they can be much better than that. And it's just been a weird season. I've talked about this before, of getting blown out in a lot of games, but still winning more than they're losing, but just in those losses getting blown out. But the Kings were able to make one of those games against New Orleans close because of Trey Lyles and Malik Monk hitting shots. But the Kings are obviously going to have to be shooting well from 3 to beat the Pelicans. I think because the Pelicans have so much length, it's really tough for the Kings to be able to get inside without the ball getting knocked away. I think it bothers Fox, but I think he'll be better now that he has played 2 games against the Pelicans. Definitely a bit worried about Sabonis in that sense because he can definitely be prone to getting the ball knocked away from help. But I do think the Kings will be able to bounce back and definitely show a better performance, especially at home against the Pelicans in this one. And hopefully we can book our spot in Las Vegas for the in-season tournament semifinals. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Monday to recap that game against the Pelicans. Peace.